Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Yes, friends, it's that time again. It's time for Tiger Claw Radio. I'm your host, Critical Failure. This week, we're going to have some fun with ChatGPT. And some weird ideas about that. We got some chiptunes, we got some van casting. It's snowy out here in Maryland, which we don't see much these days anymore. And what a day it is. Alrighty, let's get things started with wow, a classic. This is from Nordloof, and I found it on Bandcamp a good while back, and this was an example of a record that I wanted to buy that I just never got around to, and now it's gone. This was for sale as part of a split 45, and the name of the track is Stay True. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back. Back again in the studio. I do love that track. I know I've played it here on TCR before, but I think it's one I'll always refer back to. Anyway, let's get to the van. We're gonna start things off with a burrito run from this past week. We are van casting, boys and girls. It is 9:39 p.m. Burrito run. Oh yeah! It's time for CF to go out and get burritos and be way too excited about it. Oh yeah, burrito run. We're gonna get burritos, flippity-doo. Let's go, man. So, I got the Ambernick RG Nano. Is it Nano? Nano, that's what it's called, right? For some reason, this device has not stuck. Well, the name didn't stick with me. I think we're reaching a point where I can't keep track of the names anymore. I could for a while. I was really just into the Ambernick products, and everything was RG something. RG280V. RG stands for Retro Game 280 is the model number. There's a 280V for vertical, and there's a 280, I don't know, S for straight. I think that's what the S is. And then there's, 351P for plastic and 351M for metal. There was sort of a logical progression, but there's just been too many. So there you go. So I played with this thing for a few days, and it's for a product of this size, I'm surprised at how much power it has. For example, I have some PS1 games on it. You couldn't play a PS1 game because the screen is too small, but it will run them beautifully, which is hilarious to me, because I have games, I have handhelds with really nice screens that can't do it, and this thing can. It's running, hold on a second, windshield's starting to fog over, reach over and take care of that. It's running some sort of OpenDingX clone. It's it's not Android. It runs OPK files if you want to add something to it locally. And from what I gather, the Fun Key S, if you're familiar with that, that's another ultra tiny console. It runs the same software as the Fun Key S. I've been playing what I've actually been playing. When I first opened it up, I did this thing of let's try all the systems and see what they look like, because I know when people get this, what I've read is that they settle on the classic Game Boy games, Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and the reason why is because of the smaller resolution, so all of the text shows up exactly as it should. And I would say that's a fair statement. It's not the only thing that you can play on it. But the game I've actually been playing the most of is, it's kind of embarrassing at this point, but RPG Maker for the Game Boy. RPG Sukuru for the Game Boy with an English translation patch that's actually patched very well. I've been playing that a couple of days, and if you've never played it, it's a good game. I'm surprised at how much they can do on an old Game Boy cartridge. The mapping is very rudimentary. If you play these old RPG Makers, the way they did mapping, instead of drawing a map, tile for tile, square for square, you would get these large tile puzzle pieces, and each puzzle piece represented an entire screen, and you'd pick from a palette of pre-made puzzle pieces. So you're a lot more limited in that sense. But I think it was a neat idea being able to do it on the Game Boy, and there's link cable functionality, so you could, if you've met somebody else who had the same game, you could send them your game and vice versa, and in that way you could actually play other people's games, which I think is really neat. That's something the Super Nintendo version was sorely missing. So I played with that for a while. I'm not making a real game. I think my game is called Fart Adventure or something like that. And I was just laying out some NPCs and working with it and seeing what it does. And yeah, it's been a good time. This is a game that has a lot of text, and it all is very readable on the RG Nano. Gotta say, man, the screen on this thing is really small, so I don't think I could. I don't know. When I first picked it up, I was like, this screen is kind of unusable. This is kind of too small for me to really get into. But on the other hand, that very same night, I had a really good session of RPG Maker on the Game Boy, and I was really digging it. Really digging it. Beyond that, weirdly enough, my copy came preloaded with Pico 8 games, but no Pico 8 emulator. So figure that out. Pico 8 would be a great fit for this console because the small resolution, but also perfect square. I think a Pico 8 is 127 by 127, perfect square resolution. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, but just from the cursory time I've spent doing development for Pico 8, those are numbers I've run into quite a bit. So yeah, that would fit, awesome. You got a small console with a square screen that's designed for quick pick up and play and put down type games. And then I would say that in this case, just to complement the original Game Boy library. Because most of let's face it, you get one of these things, you're gonna be playing The Legend of Zelda, you're gonna be playing Oracle of Ages, you're gonna be playing 6 Golden Coins, you're gonna be playing Kirby's Adventure, those types of things. Or Kirby's Dream Land, rather. Kirby's Adventure is on the NES, which it can run. But yeah. So no, I'm having fun with it. It was turned off initially by the fact that it didn't have an earphone jack, but that hasn't really been a problem. I didn't show this in my unboxing because I didn't notice it until afterwards, but it actually came with one of those adapters so you can plug earphones in, which I think was a really nice touch. Yeah, and so I will be playing with it a little bit more. I've got to say, I like... here's the thing, Hemrock, my brother in video games, this is where you and I have a great disagreement. I know your heart stays true to the clamshell, and good for you for being the authority on clamshell within the group. But for me, my brother in video games, my heart stays true to the vertical form factor. It's what I love. It's the most like the old school Game Boy, and that's the video game system / console / whatever that I have the most affection for. I am at Chipotle now. More on that in a minute. BRB, right back. All right. I have acquired burrito status equals unlocked. All right, so we were talking about form factor. And I remember talking about clamshells versus why I like the vertical ones. And I don't remember what got me to that topic, but yeah, I remember being, how old was I? This would have been in 3rd grade, which would have been 1993. I would have been 9 years old when my older brother had himself a Game Boy. The DMG, the brick Game Boy, and the stories of trying to steal my older brother's Game Boy so I could play it for a little while. So if I could just get, for a short period of time, play, some of the games that he had. He had a black fanny pack that he kept games in, and he always bought his games from a local, it was a pawn shop, but it was a toy specialty pawn shop that put their video games under glass, even as far back as, the 90s or whatever. So we'd go in and they'd have NES games, regardless of what they were, for $5 a piece, because it was the 90s, and they'd have Game Boy games, regardless of what they were, for $10 a piece. And he acquired, over time, a little pack filled with Game Boy games. And the big ones, were Super Mario Land 2. I remember Zelda early on. And amongst those, then we go to the thrift store games. He got Bill and Ted's Game Boy Adventure, which was a weird game, but I really liked it. He got some off-road style game, and I don't remember any of the other games. This is kind of bugging me now, but this is why I think of these vertical handhelds so fondly. So I've kind of enjoyed having a vertical handheld that's got some oomph to it. I wish it was a little bit bigger, and I think that's why people like those Miu Minis. the Miu Mini, as well as, and then Ambernick has its own like knockoff, the 35XX. I think Kaiser might have one of those. Those look pretty nice. So yeah, I'll probably keep playing RPG Maker on it, and beyond that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else. I'll probably go back to the Evercade, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, it's been a good time. Well, I can feel pangs of rambling in my side. So in order to keep from going off on too far of a tangent, I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to the studio. You know, it's always a red flag if you can't remember how you got to what you're talking about. So with that, I will see you guys there. Back again in the studio. We're going to do, there's a sister song to the Nordloop track. It is called Silver Paradise, and it's the other track on the 7-inch, right? So one side had one artist, and the other side had 2 songs from Nordloop. Here's the second one. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More van casting when we come back. Back again in the van. Time to kill ourselves with fast food, baby. Yeah! It's 8:32 on this brisk, whatever the temperature is, 28-degree evening here in Maryland. I am driving out for a mission of fast food, gasoline for the car, and more importantly, goodies for my wife. Okay, so I have spent, well, the last time I recorded for this was a couple days ago, so the only game I've really been able to dig my teeth into since then is Rust, of course. You know, loving that MMO. You know, it's like you play a game for more than 2 weeks, then there's not much I can say about it on the air that hasn't been said, but it's still good fun. I play on a server that wipes every Thursday, so all the bases you've built, everything just gets obliterated Thursday afternoon, and that's when everybody wants to play, and there's a scramble to build stuff. And today is currently Sunday, so Thursday, counting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so the map is like 4 days old at this point. So it's calmed down a little bit. That first day, there's like 750 people playing, and now I think it averages down to like between 200 and 300. So I was there, and my group had their base built, and I am clearly the weakest member on our team. Like, that's an accepted fact. But I follow the golden rule of thou shalt not withdraw more than you deposit. And so they're always super nice to me. I basically just go out and chop trees and, you know, observe the craziness that is the other people who play Rust. There was one today, man. So even if you don't know Rust or dig the game or whatever, I think you'll appreciate this story. The game starts with the first weapons you get are primitive weapons. Like, you don't get guns right away. Before you get guns, you're out there with bows and arrows and spears. And the way I do it, because I'm not great with the weapons, I usually leave the base nearly naked with the idea that if somebody kills me, then that's fine. I'll just restart the base, no big deal. So I was out scavenging, and sure enough, here comes some other knuckle nut with a bow. And he's like, "Hey, there's a guy, I'm gonna get him." And he comes after me with the bow. And the way the bow works is much like a real bow. There's a drawback. You draw back the thing, and then you release it, and then it goes your shot. So there's a delay. And I knew there was a delay. So I'm running away from this guy. He's chasing me, and he is missing every shot. And it was no less than 10 arrows. And the whole time, I'm just using voice chat, because remember that I'm naked. I don't have like a bunch of gear on me. So if he kills me, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I'm just like giving him a hard time. "You're bad. I know you're going to get me, but you're bad." Ooh, that guy got so mad. Oh, it was so much fun. Oh, that's why I love Rust. That was a good time. And the best part was he got away, because he was indeed very bad. And I loved it. It was just tasty, delicious. I'm at the gas station. I'm going to fill up, and I'll be right back. So that was Rust. Apart from that, tinkering around with Pico 8. I don't want to talk about this too much, because I think I talked about it last week. Can't really remember. I just posted a Pico 8 cartridge explaining collision detection, which I think is a fascinating subject. The way collision detection works is really interesting. It's 4 true-false questions. Is thing A higher than thing B? Because if it's not higher than thing B, there's no way they're touching. Is thing A to the right of thing? You know, that kind of thing. There's 4 questions. And if any of them are false, then you don't have a collision. So all 4 have to be true. If all 4 things are true, the collision is made. So I whipped up this little thing, 2 boxes, you put them together with the arrow keys, collision detected. And the whole idea is if you press escape, you can look at the code, and it's commented very verbosely. I hate it. I've seen people do this kind of thing before, where they'll put some kind of tool where you're supposed to examine the code, but then the code is just there to speak for itself, which is fine if you're a seasoned programmer. But if you're a newbie and you're, playing Pico 8 trying to break into coding, it does not help. So you're like, all right, this function is the collision detection. The first 2 lines determine the size of the top edge by getting the X coordinate and adding 8 pixels, because 8 pixels is the width of the sprite, and there you go. And then just, good stuff. Good. So that cartridge ended up doing very well. It got like 130 plays, I think, inside the first 24 hours, which is not much. But for me, in my little D&D tools, is really, really good. And now that I know how to do some simple collision detection, I'm starting some work on some basic, and I do mean basic, little Pico 8 actual games. Because I've made and published, I think, 5 Pico 8 programs, but not any of them are actually games. So that's something I'm messing with, because when the week starts and I have more time, I have a Biddy engine that runs Lua. It's the same kind of thing, except it doesn't have the limitations, and I'm building a game in that right here. All right, it came down here, so I'm gonna meet you guys back in the studio. See you there. Back again in the studio. We are well past the 20-minute mark. This is where I'd like to thank the sponsors here on Tiger Claw Radio, those who give of their resources to make sure we can keep coming back time and time again. They are Darabka, Tecmo Balls, and EmeraldRangers.com. Thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying the party. All right, boys and girls, this is kind of a bit of a weird one, but stick with me. So I've been using ChatGPT a good bit, actually, over the past month or so. Big props to Mecha Menace, who suggested that multiple times. Mecha Menace, whenever I talk about Pico 8, he would, hey, you should consider, using ChatGPT. And once I was like, fine, I'll give it a shot. And yeah, now I'm on it all the time for all sorts of different stuff. Well, a little while back, my daughter was going to sleep on the couch. She is 9. And okay, so just for fun, we used ChatGPT to look up, we were like, hey, write me a bedtime story about this or that or the other, whatever. And that progressed to, hey, write me a bedtime story about Pokemon. And she, being her age, thought they were, really nice. There's simple little things, clearly AI generated. You read more than one of them, you can notice a pattern. But the more we did it, the more weird the prompts got. And I thought we would give that a shot here on the air. So I asked ChatGPT, hey, can you write me a bedtime story about Alex and Ryan from River City Ransom? Once upon a time in River City, Alex and Ryan, the dynamic duo known for their martial arts skills, found themselves in an unexpected adventure. One peaceful night, a mysterious portal appeared near the riverbank. Intrigued, Alex and Ryan decided to step through it, unsure of where it might lead. On the other side, they discovered a fantastical land filled with whimsical creatures and colorful landscapes. The inhabitants of this magical realm were in trouble, facing an evil force that threatened to engulf their world in darkness. The duo, fueled by their sense of justice, agreed to help. As Alex and Ryan ventured deeper into the enchanted land, they encountered challenges that tested their strength, agility, and teamwork. Along the way, they made new friends, including talking animals, magical beings, who joined them in their quest to save the realm. The villain, a wicked sorcerer with dark power, awaited them in a towering castle at the heart of the land. To defeat him, Alex and Ryan had to combine their martial arts prowess with the unique abilities of their newfound friends. The battle was intense, filled with flips, kicks, and magical blasts. In the end, our heroes emerged victorious, restoring peace to the magical realm. Grateful for their bravery, the inhabitants threw a grand celebration in Alex and Ryan's honor. As the portal reopened, the duo bid farewell to their new friends and returned to River City, cherishing the memories of their extraordinary bedtime adventure. And so, as the night drew to a close, Alex and Ryan drifted off to sleep, their dreams filled with the echoes of the magical realm they had saved together. So naturally, I asked ChatGPT, wait, did Alex and Ryan sleep together at the end of the story? No, they did not sleep together in that way. They simply drifted off to sleep separately after their adventure, each in their own space, with dreams filled with the memories of their magical realm they had saved together. The end. Now listen, if that doesn't make you want to go out and get a copy of River City Ransom, I honestly don't know what will. I was, oh, jeez. So that particular prompt I floated by ChatGPT on my phone while I was in bed last night, and I just started laughing hysterically in the silence of night. Praying that I didn't wake my wife up. Good times. I tip my hat to you, ChatGPT. You hit the nail on the head. In actual gaming news, one thing I haven't done for a while is, I like to keep track of Indie Retro News, the blog. Indie Retro News regularly makes posts about things that are being developed for old, pre-NES computers. I'm big into the Commodore 64. That's usually where I get my information when it comes to new projects being released. But they also talk about like the Amiga and other stuff. I had to drop. Let's see. I had to drop down probably like 9 posts for the first like Commodore 64 thing, which is unlike them. There's usually C64 in the first couple posts for sure. And the game that I found was called Super GP 64, racing game. Looks a lot like Rad Racer, or probably more accurately F1 Race for the Game Boy, but in color, in C64 color. Looks really good. There is that game. Actually, you know what? Let me put a link. I'm going to put a link in the Discord to the article, and then the article has a source link that'll jump you over to their itch.io page. It's a free game, but I threw $2 in the hat because this is a guy who's developing for the C64, and I love it. The game is looking great. I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. And they don't, they're making something that's free for everybody. If you've got a Pal Kitty V90, this appears to be a great addition to the V90, but I will, I'll have to give it a spot and see what we think. Head over to the Discord in the latest episode channel, and I'll put a link to this. So that was the extent of what caught my eye that I could actually play. The top of the page right now is Turbo Outrun, which looks really good. I was a big fan of Outrun back in the day in the arcades. So this is what now? The question is, what is this for? Highly anticipated conversion of the classic arcade game Turbo Outrun makes its debut on the Commodore Plus/4. So, Commodore Plus. All right, now I'm intrigued. Let me. External links C64 release. Looks like it had a Yeah, no, I take it back. That is a C64 game. I thought it was like for some reason when I glazed over this, I initially thought it was gonna be like an Amstrad CPC or some one of those like, or maybe like the Spectrum, one of those computers that has a keyboard built in that I've never touched. That sort of thing. But no, this also appears to be at least have a version for the C64. So what I don't see is like an itch link on this one. So this is not an instance where I can throw a couple of dollars in the hat, but it is a freeware game. So there you go. So you can find that on Indie Retro News. Great site, most generic name ever for a website. All right, boys and girls. So we're going to shift gears now. We're going to do the fail bag because I have a few nice fat comments for the fail bag. And I want to devote enough time to be able to go off on a tangent. We're going to start with EmeraldRangers.com, which is the site that made the deal to bring me back from the dead. And by the way, if you haven't been to EmeraldRangers.com, the Beastcast 74, featuring the Gaming Beast. And it looks like, based on his thumbnail, we've got comments and readings from all your favorites, the Death Adders, the CFs, and the Michael Smiths. I think that's Michael Smith. It might be Tomcat X. Is that Tomcat X? My apologies to Tomcat X if it is. Anyway, I've got that downloaded. It is just under 4 hours. Whew. So looking forward to that one. Sonic Prime is canceled on Netflix. That's an article from Cameron1391. Big props to Cameron for continuing with the written work over there. 5 random Power Rangers facts you probably did not know. That's from Sendu. We got Australia to host the new music festival Pandemonium Rocks in April 2024. It's from Cameron. And then we come to bad video game t-shirts from old CF. Desm101 left this one directly on the website. I have a mini PC that I set up with Launchbox. It's pretty cool, but it can be a pain to set up correctly. I think you can try a different emulator for C64 associated files. So I won't I think you're trying to set a different emulator for C64 associated files, so it won't try and go through RetroArch. I think I have something similar for MSX games on my launch box. Yeah, I know I see the options for it for configuring emulators, and now I have to go back to this thing of like finding the good C64 emulators. As soon as I saw that, I went after an emulator called Frodo, which I used to use years ago. And then another one called Hex 64 or Hex C64, which was a great emulator. But I played with them for like a few minutes and I put them down because this was coming at the tail end of a lot of failure with my Launchbox. Don't get me wrong, Launchbox has been a lot of fun. Any of the games that are oriented around the joystick, my current Launchbox setup is amazing. And I've just used, I have like a nearly full ROM set loaded in. I've got the stock scrape set up, so there's a lot of holes in it, a lot of like gray cartridges with missing box art, but a lot of them do have box art, and I'm utilizing like the favorites list, the stuff that is actually working, that I'll go back to. There's a game called Shifty Balls, and it's, you know, it's an innocuous game with like an eyebrow raising title, Shifty Balls, and my son was around. And we were goofing around. He's 14. So I was like, hey, look, we're going to play some Shifty Balls. And, like, despite my best efforts, I actually, like, got into it. And it's like, oh, this is kind of an innovative, vertical drop puzzle game. And so now I like Shifty Balls. And it plays with a joystick and works very well on RetroArch. So this is something I definitely have. Like, I'm not saying it's not an issue. I definitely have to fix it because there's games I want to play that I can't. But yeah, I'm liking Launchbox very much. Actually, I have a mini PC down in the downstairs that I don't use much, and I wonder if it would be it might be pretty sweet to set that up with Launchbox. I bet that might be cool. I don't know. For another day, though. Big thanks to Desmond101 for listening and hanging out with us and talking some video games. We're going to shift gears over to the Discord, to the Failback channel. And we got... excuse me. Hemrock says, this might spark some interesting commentary from you. Mad Little Pixel says, new Sega Genesis handheld that's like a Nintendo Switch just announced. All right, well, let me pause this thing and give it a watch. All right, let's talk about what we saw. So the guy was talking about how a handheld console was announced. It was a Sega Genesis kart running console, a little like the Sega Nomad, but it also like had a dock where you could plug it into the TV. And he started talking about how Hyperkin has a long history of announcing things and then never like really producing them. And the examples that he gave was Hyperkin had a clone of the N64 in the works, which I think would have been brilliant. Never came out. They also had a clone of the TurboGrafx 16, which they went as far as to demo at PAX East. I don't know, one of the PAX conventions. And that has also never come out. So here's the deal. I am not impressed when companies make announcements, ever. I'm not. You want to impress me? Release something. This is the reason why I never cared about E3. Because they're not signing any contracts. They're not, they're not making any promises. And if they are making promises, they're certainly not going to be held responsible for those promises. So what's the point? Seems like like a whole new E3 type situation, where products could be announced, and when they're released, they could be totally different from what they told us they'd be or showed us. There is no sort of check and balance when companies make announcements. So no, I'm too old for that. I'm too old to be standing around for years waiting for something to release. You want me to be impressed? Release something. I will say, however, that the Hyperkin company, like, I've been really impressed with the stuff that I've bought from them. He didn't care much for their controllers, but I thought they were great. I have an NES clone, and I love the controller that it came with because I probably have like 4 or 5 authentic NES controllers, and there's something wrong with every single one of them. So it was nice to just get out a clone I could just beat the tar out of. I bought I think it's called the Scout, which is the Super Nintendo clone controller. And that works really well. It works well enough to play Tetris Attack, which is the most precision game I've ever played. If you lose even a single frame in that game, then you're not getting the real experience. And the same goes with the controllers. If there's even a little bit wrong with your controller, then you're going to get dusted. At least you will in my house, where my wife and my oldest son are both tournament competent players. They don't play in tournaments, but this we're talking about like all the only games these people play a lot of the times. Very, very good Tetris Attack players. And I think this is a controller that held up, I've had my eye on some of the other Hyperkin consoles. I think the only real bust, as far as I'm concerned, was at one point they released, and I don't know what it's called, but it happened years ago. It was the Game Boy console. It was a console, like a TV console, but it played GBA and Game Boy games. And it was a gorgeous looking console, a tiny little cube, a top-loading little cube. You would put the game in, and that released too early, and the games were janky, and it disappeared. And I've seen that thing just reemerge on Amazon recently, and I'm thinking I haven't done my research yet, but if that thing, if they cleaned it up, oh man, I'd be all about it. I'd be all about it because my daughter is now collecting Game Boy games, which I think I mentioned last week. So I think the real move is to get the Retron 5, and I think that's what I've been avoiding because I don't like cordless controllers. But I know they're not required, but it's a weird thing. I don't know. I've put off buying the Retron 5 for a lot of years, and now that I have my computer, which is the big thing I was saving for, I might make that jump, especially since the Evercade just recently was another thing that I was fighting getting. I didn't want to get the Evercade, and then I caved and bought their tiny handheld, and then I was all in. I was like, oh man, what have I been missing? So I'm hoping it would be another situation like that. I know Hemrock talks up the Retron 5 as a pretty decent buy. From what I understand, he tells me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can apply hack patches to the games. So if I wanted to play a hacked version of River City Ransom, I could load the patch onto the console somehow and then play my actual River City Ransom cartridge, but the hacked version. That seems really cool. I mean, I've got a lot of Famicom cartridges, Famicom and Super Famicom, which would be amazing to be able to do that with. So, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. All right, let's see what else we have written on the Discord. TCR 470. Nice long episode. Strong work. Thanks, man. I think more stories from childhood would be great for both Beastcast and TCR. Do I sense a reoccurring segment? That might be fun. Problem with doing a segment where I tell childhood stories is every single time I tell a childhood story, I always have the fear that this is something I've told before, and it pangs on me because I don't want to be the person who tells the same story 10, 20 times. But at the same time, I've been running a podcast since 2009, so it's unavoidable that I'm going to tell some of these stories more than once. I've had the idea, I don't know if I'll actually do it this way, but I've had the idea to do a YouTube video series of specific stories. That way I could retire them, how my older brother had the Game Boy when I was young. I could talk about that. That's good times. But anyway, let's see what else he's got. For the record, I like Civilization 3. I remember receiving it as a Christmas present in 2001, along with the Weathered album from Creed. Yes, I still like Creed to this day. So does my wife. There's nothing wrong with Creed. They're a little commercially, but whatever. They're okay. I know that band had a lot of haters, In any case, I remember listening to that album, I think on my CD Walkman while playing Civ 3. Did you ever use the Donut World map? I don't know why it sticks out to me. All right, so when I played, this is CF now responding to the Civ 3 thing. When I played Civ 3, I always did it from like a vanilla generated map for the most part. And I did that because the games were long, and I thought they had some balance. And when they weren't balanced, you know, it felt fair. Like if something was wrong, then it was like, oh, it's just the generation that messed things up. The only exceptions to that rule was Civ 3 had a zombie mod that I played several times. You know, the mods, they run as the conquest scenarios, so those are more like predetermined hand-drawn maps. So I played that one, and I remember playing a mod where it was like starting in the modern era, but it was like a pack-in. Like if you get it on Steam, it comes packed in. It wasn't like a mod that you download. And that's really it. I favored the pre-existing maps, but I don't know. Next time I revisit that game, I might change that up a little bit. Back to the comment. For whatever reason, I didn't stick with the third installment and found myself going back to Civ 2, probably because of the available scenarios and relative ease of making my own. Yeah, I know that about you and Civ 2, and you've made like the Steam scenario that you made for Civ 2. That's a really good scenario, man. That is a detailed, like lore intensified sandboxy. That's a great scenario, man. It really is. The only reason I didn't stick with Civ 2 and I moved on to Civ 3 is because of that whole thing with the pathfinding. It was just too much for me because you get too many units out, moving around at once. Yeah, it forces you to micromanage. You can't delegate at all, or at least not as much as I'd like. That said, Civ 2 will always be special because it was my introduction to the series, and I remember playing Civ 2 on my little laptop, on like the dining room table while the family was running around. Good times. All right, he says, you mentioned Premier Manager for the Evercade. That would be Premier Manager 97 in the Gremlin collection. Unfortunately, this collection is no longer MSRP. Now, granted, it's only $4 extra, but to me, it's more of a principle of the thing. Regardless, I have Utopia and Zool on tape, so I would be buying it largely for Premier Manager. I'm not sure that's worth $24. I recently went to a local brick and mortar store looking for Evercade carts, especially ones that are overpriced on Amazon and eBay. Somewhat surprisingly, I found the Astor Bros. Astorborg collection, as well as Pico Arcade. The former cannot be purchased on Amazon, and the latter is over MSRP. Got them both for $19.99. Interestingly, they had both Duke Nukem collections, although one of them was listed for $25. He says, you make a good point about home computer heroes. McLovin the Evercade talk. Thanks, man. Pico Arcade, I got that one too, and I was a little disappointed. I think I'm more interested in like the standard Pico series of cartridges, particularly Pico 1, and it's unfortunate, but that's a legacy cart now, so not just over MSRP, but they're not producing it anymore, so it's not going to come down. So if you don't have Pico 1, it's going to become... I don't know if it's fair to say it's going to become like the Technos one that's like $200 or more, but it's definitely going to go up in price. So I don't know. We'll see. The Duke Nukem collections, I'm surprised those aren't poached harder than they are. I got really lucky and got them both for $20. Well, one for $20 and then one for $20 plus additional shipping because it wasn't on Amazon. So it's more like $25, $26. But they were good collections. They were really good collections. A great way to experience the original Duke Nukem games. Okay. You make a good point about Home Computer Heroes. McLovin the Evercade talk. I love the Home Computer Heroes cartridge, and I know no one else does. It's a shame. It really is. So we have a couple more. He says, you mentioned how much space on an how much space an Evercade cart can handle. especially in regards to PS1 games. CF, we have micro SDs that can hold 1 terabyte. Surely Blaze could make an Evercade card that holds a handful of PS1 games. Okay, yes, but there's different types of storage. Is it the same kind of storage that a micro SD card has? Or I don't know that for sure, because I think there's got to be at least one example of I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're just breaking. I don't know. I really don't know. I have no idea. This is something I have to read more on before I can effectively talk about it. But yeah, you're right about the micro SD cards. So we'll see. But he goes on. An RPG Maker collection would be pretty sweet, especially if you're able to post your creations online with the option to download others using the VS. Oh man, that would be so cool. I was pumped for Pure Solar back in the day. Hughes talked me out of it, getting the first print because he thought it was a scam. I wish I could have gotten a first print copy for the good old Jenny. Gunslugs. Funny enough, that was the first game I looked up on the new Genesis game vid. Yeah, man, I haven't played the Genesis version yet, but Gunslugs is a good game. You can, if you don't feel like dropping the old cash, that's a good addition to your Steam collection. And speaking of Steam collection, also if you ever wanted to check out Premier Manager, that's another one that you can find on Steam. Oh, hang on. Premier Manager. All right. I wonder if 97 is not on here. The oldest one is Premier Manager 02/03. It has the same cover art, but it's not clear if it's the same game. Regular price $2.99, currently on sale for 74 cents. That is a significant drop from, what'd you say it was? $25? Yeah, I could see not wanting to buy a card just for Premier Manager. Fun to be had in that game, though. We got one more from Hemrock. He says, you asked about how many games are coming out for the Genesis during its heyday. In 1991, there were about 150, if you include Japan exclusives. I haven't updated to the new firmware on the V90. I'm waiting for them to work out the bugs in the beta. To be honest, I haven't really had many issues with the 133 CFW version, with the exception of the hated unsafe shutdown problem. Yeah, I don't know. I would like new firmware, I think just because I've used that system for so long. And I want to see what they've come up with, because I'm sure they've done some cool stuff. As far as the Genesis in its heyday, yeah, 150 is a lot. I think compared to any console, that's a lot. You know, if because that's not, you can't compare that to Steam and all the games that get dumped on Steam. Because we're talking about 150 games that have cartridge releases. Physically released medium, and that is a shockingly high number. So yeah, I guess 15 is significantly lower. But what are you gonna do? Hemrock, man, thanks for writing in and bringing all of the gaming knowledge. It's certainly appreciated. All right, what do we got from good old Durabka here? He put something awesome in my Discord. Super late comment on TCR 469 at Hemrock. Final Fantasy V is a great choice for number 1 out of the first FF list. I finished and I had a blast. The class combination and weird abilities are great. I enjoyed it, for example, using the Geomancer class, which was okay, or a below average class, except in the swamp where he is god tier and will most of the time drown almost all enemies in one shot. CF, it's hype. You got a better Panzer, but I gotta agree. I'm playing a lot of old games recently, although I did play some more modern games as well. I got RoboCop Rogue City for that purpose over the holiday sale. It looks great. I'll say more once I got a chance to play it. I played Reign of Kings, which is pretty much medieval Rust. I honestly got sick of the griefing. I'd play it again with the bros from the Mondo Roundverse in a private server, like we did Minecraft, but not on a public server. The Everdrive is interesting. I might get one. I might want some kind of a retro clone machine or emulation machine for my living room when guests come. It's probably going to be the Retron 3, or maybe the EverDrive if the game collections are still available. You mean Evercade? Is that what you're talking about? EverDrive are those cartridges that you put SD cards in, whereas the Evercade is its own proprietary system. I looked into Raspberry Pi kits for gaming. Sadly, the better ones are not sold anymore, so we'll see recommendations. Lemon64 is a good site. Don't worry, it's not that Lemon-themed site. For checking C64 games that have been ranked, I've been playing random ones on Launchbox, and it's been interesting. I like your hex crawl generator. Maybe I'll use it in a future campaign. Anyway, this comment is too long. Anyway, keep on rolling, brother. Thank you for checking out the hex crawl generator, because that is my masterpiece when it comes to Pico 8, and I'm supremely proud of that, and I want to rebuild it in a less restrictive environment where I can do what I want and not have to worry about what the cartridge can hold. Let's talk a little bit about, let's see, I haven't played the Final Fantasy games, so there's not much I can say about that, but on the other hand, that leaves a big door for me to enjoy things as it relates to the retro handhelds. Retron 3 is a good looking system. I've looked at that myself on the alcove, right? The right hand side of my office where I record those little alcove videos. I've got a bunch of consoles there that I wouldn't mind consolidating into a single clone console just for real estate on the desk, because in my situation it's important. As for the C64 site, Lemon64, I've never navigated there on my own, but I end up there a lot. It just so happens I have a tab for Lemon64 open now, because earlier in the show I was looking up Turbo Outrun, which is on Indie Retro News. It was their number one game. Well, that has a Lemon64 article where you can view get all the goodies and stuff. Excuse me. So yeah, never actually. You know what? Why don't I head back to the Lemon64 main page? Yeah, we'll throw a heart on it. Why not? Because I get in these Commodore 64 fits, and so it's cool to know where the cultural hubs are. And so another TCR comes to a close. Big thanks to everybody who wrote in. Good to hear from you guys. Thanks for hanging out and talking some video games and listening to some chiptunes. And whatever it is you're walking into as you take on the rest of your week, just know that I'm rooting for you. Stay well. I'll see you next week.